I want you, wherever you are listening right now, to take a second and play a quick association game with me.
Oh, I love a good association game.
Right. So, what is the very first image that flashes into your mind when you hear the word tobacco?
Like, really try to picture the environment, the lighting, the texture,
Exactly. Are you instantly transported to, like, a smoky, dimly lit dive bar at 2 in the morning?
with the smell of stale ash clinging to a leather jacket.
Yeah, or maybe you went in a completely different direction. Like maybe you're picturing a massive, incredibly expensive cigar being slowly, deliberately cut in a mahogany paneled boardroom.
By someone in a very bespoke suit, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah. Or, and bear with me here, what if you hear tobacco and you immediately start imagining a sweet, sticky, incredibly decadent dessert?
Like something dripping with honey, dark chocolate, and warm vanilla.
Exactly. And, if that last image is the one that popped into your head, you are likely already deeply embedded in the modern fragrance community. Oh, absolutely. And that contradiction right there, I mean, the fact that a single plant can evoke a dirty dive bar, a billionaire's lounge, or a Parisian bakery, that's the absolute heart of our exploration today.
Because tobacco, when we look at it through the lens of high perfumery, is, well, it's rarely the harsh, burning leaf you expect it to be.
No, it operates as the ultimate olfactory chameleon.
It's just wild how versatile this one concept is. I mean, we are talking about an ingredient that has shifted seamlessly from being a potent symbol of 1920s rebellious history.
Right, the whole flapper era.
Yeah, to an edible, almost calorically dense gourmand treat, all the way to like a hyper-realistic, rugged campfire burning in the middle of the Australian outback.
It's quite a journey.
To me, tobacco in perfume is like one of those legendary, transformative character actors. You know, the ones that can play the terrifying villain or the suave romantic lead.
We're the rugged outdoorsman.
Exactly. And they completely disappear into the role depending on the script they're handed. That is an incredibly apt analogy.
Yeah.
And, when we look at that actor's long career, so to speak, we're actually looking at a mirror of our own cultural evolution.
How so?
Well, the way we have bottled the scent of tobacco traces a direct line from challenging rigid gender norms a century ago all the way to our modern, somewhat desperate societal obsession with nostalgia and comfort.
Oh, wow. So we aren't just analyzing a smell today.
Not at all. We are unpacking the memories, the identities, and the subconscious signals that this specific scent constructs.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. Today, we are going on a quest to help you find your ultimate, undeniable signature tobacco scent.
Because somewhere out there is a tobacco fragrance that perfectly matches the character you want to play.
And to pull this off, we are synthesizing a massive stack of sources, and I mean massive.
It's quite the reading list.
Yeah, we are pulling heavily from a brutal, absolutely no-holds-barred mega review from a dedicated Reddit fragrance enthusiast who goes by the handle Icarus Reindeer.
And this person personally tested, analyzed, and ranked 60 different tobacco fragrances.
60. I mean, 60 distinct heavy tobacco fragrances is a heroic, almost masochistic feat for anyone's nose.
The olfactory fatigue alone would be absolutely staggering.
Truly. So alongside that incredible boots-on-the-ground review, we're pulling from historical journals detailing the plant's 500-year aromatic journey across the globe.
As well as expert breakdowns of the hardcore, cutting-edge science of scent extraction. Because you just cannot understand modern perfumery without understanding the laboratory.
So true.
The scientific aspect is particularly compelling because the way we extract and utilize this plant has undergone a massive technological revolution.
We're talking a transition from early, purely synthetic approximations.
Like a sort of olfactory sleight of hand.
Right, to hyper-advanced green chemistry extractions that literally capture the living breath of the flower without destroying it.
It's fascinating stuff.
So as we navigate through these drastically different eras, scientific breakthroughs, and wildly varying scent profiles today, I want you to actively imagine your ideal scent profile.
Think about what vibe you are trying to project to the world.
Because the history of tobacco in perfume actually starts with a massive, mind-bending plot twist.
It really does.
If we rewind the clock, the earliest, most famous tobacco perfumes didn't actually contain a single trace of the tobacco leaf at all.
They did not. To understand the origins of the tobacco accord, we have to travel back to the aftermath of World War I.
Specifically to Paris in the 1920s.
Exactly. This was the defining era of the flappers, the whole garçon look. You had a massive cultural upheaval.
Women were cutting their hair into sharp bobs.
They were driving automobiles, they were wearing pants, discarding the restrictive corsets of the previous generation.
And crucially for our narrative today, they were smoking in public.
Yes, and from what the historical journals tell us, this wasn't just a casual habit.
Right. The sources are clear that smoking, specifically smoking strong, dark Virginia tobacco, became this highly visible, incredibly potent status symbol.
It was a deliberate performance of female independence.
And a direct rebellion against the classic polite codes of femininity, right? I mean, they were basically taking this heavily male-coded boardroom habit and aggressively claiming it for themselves.
Exactly. And the perfume houses, functioning as astute observers of cultural shifts and, well, smart businesses, saw this massive societal pivot and recognized a lucrative opportunity.
Because the traditional innocent floral perfumes just didn't fit anymore.
Right, the single-note rose or violet waters that women were previously expected to wear suddenly felt entirely incongruous with this new, bold lifestyle.
So in 1919, Ernest Doltroff at the prestigious House of Caron launched a groundbreaking perfume called Tabac Blond.
And then 2 years later, in 1921, the House of Molinard created Habanita.
And Habanita has this fascinating origin story in itself. The sources mention it was initially sold as these small scented sachets.
Or liquid drops, yes.
Intended to physically perfume women's cigarettes to mask the harsh smell of the smoke before it was eventually, bottled and sold as a wearable eau de toilette for the skin.
It was a monumental, era-defining release. But the technical marvel here is that neither Tabac Blond nor Habanita contained actual tobacco absolute.
This is the part that blows my mind.
The perfumers constructed an olfactory illusion. They relied on a masterful blend of woody, leathery, and spicy notes to reverse engineer the sensation of a dark, smoky room without using the literal plant.
It's like the 1920s equivalent of the Impossible Burger.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, it's vegan meat. They weren't using the actual ingredient. They were just perfectly reverse engineering the vibe of the ingredient, so your brain says, oh, that's a sophisticated woman smoking in a Parisian jazz club.
Exactly.
I was reading about the chemistry behind this trick, and it heavily relied on a synthetic molecule called coumarin, which had been discovered and isolated from tonka beans back in 1868.
Yes, coumarin's foundational here.
Now, I see tonka bean listed in fragrance note pyramids all the time, usually at the base. But what is coumarin actually doing on a molecular level to trick the brain into smelling tobacco?
On its own, coumarin has this incredibly warm, sweet, slightly bitter almond-like facet.
Like marzipan?
A bit, yes. But its most defining characteristic is that it smells remarkably like freshly cut hay drying in the sun.
Oh, interesting.
And when you harvest and cure actual tobacco leaves, the drying process naturally generates a massive amount of coumarin within the leaf itself.
Oh, so that's what gives cured tobacco that grassy, sweet, hay-like quality.
Precisely. So the perfumers isolated that specific hay-like facet using the tonka bean extract, and then they had to dirty it up.
They couldn't just leave it smelling like sweet hay.
Right. They paired it with other molecules, most notably a synthetic compound called isobutylquinoline.
Isobutylquinoline, that sounds like an industrial solvent you'd use to degrease an airplane engine.
It is a fiercely potent molecule. Isobutylquinoline provides a distinctively harsh, leathery, woody, mossy, and almost animalic sootiness.
Sootiness?
Yeah.
Like actual soot from a fire.
Exactly. If you smell it directly from the vat, it can be quite overwhelming. But perfumery is all about dosage and synergy.
Right, blending it down.
When you combine the sweet, nostalgic, sun-baked hay of coumarin with the dark, leathery, rubbery soot of isobutylquinoline.
And maybe dress it with a bit of spicy carnation and warm amber, like the sources say.
Yes. The human brain seamlessly merges those distinct data points and interprets the final composition as tobacco.
That is just wild.
Tabac Blond was so successful with this specific chemical trick that it actually inaugurated an entirely new fragrance family.
The letter family, right?
Exactly.
So they basically created a whole new genre of perfume by trying to fake the smell of a cigarette.
Pretty much.
But this dynamic raises a fascinating question for me. If there was no actual tobacco plant in these early masterpieces, were these perfume houses just selling a rebellious marketing concept rather than an actual literal scent profile?
What do you mean?
Like, were women in 1920s Paris just buying the idea of being a rule breaker, or did the perfume actually deliver a subversive experience?
It was an absolute synergy of both the psychological marketing and the tangible product. The marketing certainly provided the rebellious narrative.
The taboo thrill of a woman embracing the aura of a smoking lounge.
Right. But the scent itself had to deliver on that transgressive promise. The smoky, leathery, almost aggressive profile of an isobutyl quinoline heavy fragrance was a stark, intentional, and very physical departure from polite society.
So a woman wearing Tabac Blond was taking up olfactory space.
She was announcing her presence in a way that commanded attention, which was genuinely rebellious.
That makes total sense.
However, the reliance on the illusion was born out of technological limitation. As we move forward into the modern era, analytical chemistry caught up with the artistic vision.
Today, a perfumer who wants to create a tobacco scent does not have to fake it.
No, modern botanical extraction methods have gotten insanely precise.
They can use pure tobacco absolute now. And just to clear the air for anyone listening who might be wondering about the physiological effects, because I definitely had this thought while reading the sources.
How about the nicotine?
Yeah. Spraying a fragrance that contains real concentrated tobacco absolute does not mean you're absorbing nicotine through your skin.
It is not a nicotine patch.
Right. The extraction processes are heavily regulated, IFRA safe, and the resulting oils are entirely nicotine-free.
That is a crucial distinction. Traditional tobacco absolute is typically obtained through solvent extraction of the cured leaves.
How does that work exactly?
The process washes the plant material in chemical solvents to draw out the fragrant compounds, resulting in a dense, dark, viscous concrete, which is then purified into an absolute.
And that material is incredibly rich and complex, right?
Extremely. It offers velvety, deeply honeyed, warm resin tones alongside that dry grass and woody warmth we discussed.
But the technological evolution hasn't stopped at traditional solvent extraction.
Not at all. If we look at the absolute cutting edge of modern fragrance creation, we are seeing the widespread implementation of supercritical CO2 extraction.
Okay, I spent a lot of time reviewing the sources on this specific technique because it reads like pure science fiction.
It is incredibly advanced.
Supercritical CO2. From what I understand, they are taking regular carbon dioxide gas, putting it under an immense amount of pressure until it enters this weird liminal state.
Where it is acting like both a gas and a liquid simultaneously.
Yes, and then they use that bizarre substance to wash the plant. Am I getting the mechanics of that right?
You have grasped the fundamental physics perfectly. It is often referred to as a green solvent technology.
Because it's better for the environment.
Yes, and better for the plant. In traditional extraction, you are often using volatile organic chemicals like hexane, and you have to use heat to evaporate those chemicals away at the end of the process.
And heat is bad for the scent.
That heat, even if carefully controlled, can subtly damage or alter the most delicate, highly volatile aromatic molecules of a flower or a leaf.
It changes the scent profile, just as cooking a vegetable changes its flavor.
Exactly. You lose the raw, living essence of it. Supercritical CO2 extraction bypasses that problem entirely.
Because it's not using heat.
Right. By liquefying the carbon dioxide under high pressure, it becomes an incredibly efficient solvent. It pulls all the aromatic oils out of the tobacco leaf.
But the magic happens at the end of the process, right?
Yes. Because CO2 is a gas at room temperature, all the scientists have to do is release the pressure in the chamber.
And it just poofs away.
The CO2 instantly turns back into a gas and floats away, leaving behind an absolutely pristine, heat-unaltered, solvent-free extract.
So it's basically extracting the scent at lukewarm temperatures. It's never cooking the plant.
The result must be incredibly vibrant compared to the old methods.
The difference is night and day. A supercritical CO2 extract perfectly captures the bright honeyed sweetness, the nuanced dry grass aromatics, and the delicate floral notes of the tobacco leaf that would normally be destroyed by heat.
And it leaves zero chemical residue.
But there is an even more futuristic approach that pushes the boundary from physical extraction into pure biomimicry.
Right, the headspace technology.
Headspace. Okay, this was the part of the research that completely blew me away. I was trying to explain this to a friend yesterday.
It's hard to wrap your head around at first.
If I understand the sources correctly, they are putting a literal glass dome over a living flower in the wild, trapping the air, and then somehow reading that trapped air like a barcode.
That's a very vivid way to describe it.
Can you break down the actual laboratory process happening there?
The conceptualization is brilliant in its non-destructive nature. Imagine a rare, blooming tobacco flower in a botanical garden.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If you pluck it and process it, you destroy it, and often the scent of the dead flower is fundamentally different from the living blossom.
Right, it starts decomposing immediately.
With headspace technology, scientists enclose the living flower in a glass dome or a specialized polymer bag.
They just seal it in.
Yes. And they pump an inert gas into the dome to sweep the volatile, fragrant molecules, the actual molecules the plant is exhaling into the air, into a specialized filter or trap.
So they're literally harvesting the breath of the plant.
They are capturing the atmospheric aura. Once that trap is full of the living scent molecules, it is taken back to the laboratory and run through a machine called a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer, or GCMS.
GCMS. What does that machine actually do?
This machine analyzes the trapped air and prints out an incredibly precise molecular fingerprint.
Like a recipe.
Exactly. It tells the perfumer this living flower scent is composed of 20% molecule A, 15% molecule B, 2% molecule C, and so on.
And then what?
The perfumer then goes to their organ of raw materials and painstakingly recreates that exact chemical recipe drop by drop.
They capture the ghost of the scent, perfectly replicating it without ever harming the host plant.
That is staggering.
They are trapping the air, reading its DNA, and rebuilding it from scratch in a lab.
So modern perfumers now have access to these pristine, hyper-realistic, high-tech tobacco ingredients.
They have pure absolutes, they have CO2 extracts, they have headspace recreations. The palette is infinite.
It really is.
But from looking at the Reddit mega review, it seems like giving artists access to the real, potent, pure ingredient actually led to a massive, slightly chaotic split in the fragrance industry.
Yes, having the real thing didn't necessarily mean everyone made beautiful art.
It absolutely caused a divergence. The history of art is full of examples where the introduction of a powerful new medium completely fractures the discipline.
Pure tobacco absolute is highly complex. It has dark, dirty, sweet, and animalic facets.
Right, and on one side of the industry, you have classically trained perfumers who masterfully blend these powerful extracts into timeless, perfectly balanced compositions.
And on the other side,
Fueled by internet hype and consumer demand, you have a modern trend of perfumers who crank the intensity up to obnoxious synthetic extremes.
prioritizing sheer volume over artistic nuance.
If modern consumers are getting olfactory fatigue from these aggressive room-clearing chemicals, it really sets the stage for a showdown.
The internet loves to frame this as the classics versus beast mode.
And this is where that incredible 60-bottle mega review from Icarus Reindeer becomes our guide. We have hard data on what works and what fails spectacularly.
Let's start with the absolute pinnacle. The undisputed 10 out of 10 masterpiece on their list, which has basically become a modern legend.
Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille.
Tobacco Vanille, released in 2007 as part of Tom Ford's private blend collection, is arguably the most influential tobacco fragrance of the 21st century.
The reviewer describes it quite reverently as chocolatey tobacco spice perfection.
They do note that while it might be considered popular or even basic by some extremely niche fragrance snobs today, there is a very real structural reason for its ubiquity.
It is a masterclass in tension and balance.
Tension is a great word for it. When I look at the published note pyramid for Tobacco Vanille, tobacco leaf, vanilla, cacao, sweet wood sap, and heavy spices.
It sounds like it should be a chaotic, cloying mess.
It sounds like walking into a candle shop and being suffocated.
But the reviewer specifically points out how the perfumer, Olivier Gietin, uses harsh spices and chocolate to elevate the tobacco.
What is the chemistry of that tension? Why doesn't the vanilla just drown everything else out?
The brilliance lies in the contrast of textures. Vanilla and sweet wood saps are incredibly dense, heavy, and viscous on an olfactory level.
They pull a fragrance down.
If left unchecked, they become cloying. To counteract that heavy gravity, the perfumer introduced sharp, highly volatile, almost abrasive spices.
Think clove, ginger, star anise, and coarse cinnamon.
These spices act like tiny, sharp needles cutting through a thick blanket of syrup.
Wow, that's a great visual.
Furthermore, the use of cacao is vital. Cacao provides a dry, dusty, bitter powderiness that perfectly bridges the earthy roughness of the tobacco leaf with the gourmand sweetness of the vanilla.
Every element is working in service of keeping the tobacco prominent but palatable.
It's the culinary equivalent of putting a pinch of flaky sea salt on a dark chocolate truffle.
You need the bitter and the sharp to make the sweet actually register as complex.
Exactly. And if we look at another high-scoring classic from the review, it illustrates this principle of balance in an entirely different, almost opposite way.
Guerlain vetiver, which scored an 8 out of 10.
This one really surprised me when I was reading the list.
It is an unexpected yet brilliant inclusion. Jean-Paul Guerlain created vetiver in 1959.
Vetiver is usually known as this sharp, grassy, damp, almost soapy scent. It's extracted from the roots of a grass.
Right. The vetiver root.
I don't naturally associate that bracing, green cleanliness with the dark warmth of a cigar lounge.
That incongruity is exactly why it is a masterpiece.
Oh.
As the Reddit reviewer astutely points out, it's a fresh classic that hides an amazing tobacco note in its depths.
So it's hidden.
Well, in Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille, the tobacco is the undeniable star, commanding the center stage. In Guerlain vetiver, the tobacco operates entirely differently. It is the structural foundation, the stage itself.
Oh, I see.
The perfumer utilized the extremely dry, austere, masculine, slightly woody facets of unsweetened tobacco to create a robust backbone.
So it's grounding the freshness.
Precisely. If you have the bright, green, soapy, citrus-laced soapiness of the vetiver floating at the top, it needs something to anchor it to the skin. Otherwise, it just smells like a fleeting cologne or a bar of soap.
The tobacco gives the clean vetiver a shadow.
It gives it a sense of gravity, an earthy resonance. That is the hallmark of classic, high-end perfumery. The tobacco isn't screaming for attention. It serves the composition as a whole.
Okay, so those are the masterpieces, the symphonies. Now let's turn our attention to the monsters.
The monsters, yes.
Because the reviewer absolutely skewers a modern trend in perfumery known colloquially as beast mode.
For anyone listening who hasn't fallen down the rabbit hole of fragrance, TikTok, or YouTube, beast mode refers to fragrances that are explicitly engineered to project their scent across a massive room.
Choke out everyone in an elevator.
And last on your skin for 24 hours straight, even after you shower.
And according to our reviewer, this nuclear performance almost always comes at the absolute expense of artistic beauty.
The critique leveled at these fragrances in the mega review is scathing, and from a chemical standpoint, completely justified.
Designing a fragrance primarily for extreme longevity and massive projection to achieve that beast mode status forces a perfumer's hand, doesn't it?
It does. You can no longer rely on delicate, natural floral absolutes or nuanced citrus notes because those molecules are highly volatile.
They evaporate and disappear within hours.
Exactly. To get 24-hour longevity, you must rely on massive, dominating overdoses of heavy synthetic aroma chemicals and fixatives that bond aggressively to the skin and refuse to evaporate.
This completely flattens the delicate three-dimensional structure of top, heart, and base notes.
Let's read the riot act on the absolute failures from the review because the descriptions are hilarious and tragic.
First up, initio side effect, which the reviewer gave a savage 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10. Ouch!
They describe it as a disgusting cacophony of uber-synthetic sweet aroma chemicals.
They specifically call out a note of rubbery saffron. And my personal favorite description in the entire document, they say it smells like Play-Doh cough syrup disguised as tobacco.
Play-Doh cough syrup. That is brutal.
It is a profoundly vivid description of chemical imbalance and olfactory fatigue.
When a perfumer uses certain synthetic saffron replacers, like safralane, in too high a dose, it stops smelling like an exotic spice and immediately registers to the human brain as burning rubber or sterile latex.
The reviewer also makes a very pointed sociological observation here, calling out the influence of paid YouTube influencers who endlessly hype these aggressively loud scents to their audiences.
Right, because an influencer can't easily demonstrate subtle nuance through a camera lens, but they can definitely yell about how a fragrance lasts for 2 days and gets you endless compliments at the club.
And that brings us to the second monster. Mancera Red Tobacco, which scored a miserable 1 out of 10.
The reviewer says it literally smells like hash chemicals.
And what's fascinating is that they note the beast mode bros on the internet will constantly defend this fragrance by saying, oh, you just have to wait for the dry down. Let it settle for a few hours.
But as the reviewer correctly argues, why should anyone have to suffer through 6 hours of smelling like a chemical warfare experiment just to get to a bearable base note?
It is an absurd proposition. The opening of a fragrance should be an invitation, not an assault.
I have to compare these beast mode fragrances to that one guy who brings a literal megaphone to a dinner party.
A megaphone.
Yeah, like, sure, you're the loudest person in the room. Everyone is looking at you. Your projection is undeniably massive.
Yeah.
But does anyone actually want to sit next to you?
Probably not.
It's purely aggressive. I want to ask you, looking at the industry as a whole, is this modern consumer obsession with longevity and projection fundamentally ruining the subtle art of perfumery?
It represents a significant crisis of values within the industry. It highlights the tension between consumer culture and artistic intent,
The market has embraced these aggressive scents.
which the reviewer cynically but accurately refers to as panty dropper fragrances, because the modern consumer, facing economic pressures, often equates performance with value for money.
The logic dictates that if an individual is spending $300 on a luxury bottle of liquid, they want a tangible return on that investment.
They want everyone in a 10-foot radius to know they are wearing it.
It's wearing your price tag on your sleeve.
Precisely. However, this demand for nuclear-level projection frequently destroys the intimacy and the storytelling of a well-crafted perfume.
A scent is traditionally meant to be discovered, not announced.
It should draw someone in closer, not hit them like a physical wall 3 minutes before you even enter the room.
It's the difference between a whisper in the ear and someone screaming in your face. Both communicate a message, but one is infinitely more appealing and sophisticated.
And interestingly, the market always seeks an equilibrium.
What do you mean?
As a direct, almost visceral reaction against these harsh, chemical, megaphone-wielding beast mode bombs, many high-end niche perfumers decided to take tobacco in the exact opposite direction.
If the club was too loud and toxic, they decided to retreat to the kitchen.
Exactly. They began to soften the tobacco, round off all of its sharp synthetic edges, and push it entirely into the realm of the edible, the comforting, and the decadently rich.
Which provides the perfect explanation for the massive gourmand trend we are seeing. Honey, chocolate, and booze.
This is the era where tobacco stops trying to be a bad boy in a leather jacket and starts looking like a 5-star dessert menu at a Michelin-starred restaurant.
The foundation for this specific evolutionary branch of tobacco is actually deeply rooted in botanical reality, isn't it?
It is. As we discussed earlier with coumarin, the tobacco leaf naturally possesses sweet, resinous, almost caramel-like qualities in its intrinsic chemical makeup.
So modern perfumers haven't arbitrarily decided to make tobacco sweet.
No, they have simply isolated and amplified what was already there, creating what the industry categorizes as gourmand tobaccos.
The Reddit review highlights some absolute towering standouts in this edible category.
The descriptions in this section of the review were legitimately making me hungry.
Let's look at Serge Luton's Écrin de Fumée. The reviewer gave this a perfect 10 out of 10, labeling it a modern masterpiece.
They point out a specific bitter cacao note that almost mimics the tartness of red fruits before the whole composition melts down into a smoky tobacco and dark rum accord.
It's walking right on the edge of being dessert, but it stays remarkably sophisticated.
The pairing of tobacco and cacao is one of the most chemically brilliant synergies in modern perfumery.
How does that work chemically?
The natural coumarin in the tobacco leaves perfectly bridges the olfactory gap to the roasted, bitter, pyrazinic qualities of high-grade cacao.
It creates a seamless, velvety transition from leaf to chocolate.
Another fascinating, incredibly luxurious example from the review is Guerlain Tobacco Honey, which scored a highly respectable 8.5 out of 10.
The reviewer emphasizes that it possesses one of the best, most astonishingly realistic honey notes they have ever encountered in any fragrance, to the point where the honey almost drowns out the titular tobacco.
There is a truly wild technical detail about that specific Guerlain fragrance in the sources.
Oh, right. The reviewer mentions that the House of Guerlain actually holds a specific exclusive patent on a specialized machine and process used to extract the scent of real physical honey.
That is why their tobacco honey smells completely unparalleled when compared to the cheap, synthetic, plasticky honey notes other brands are forced to use.
They literally patented the physical smell of real honey for their exclusive use.
It is a testament to the extreme lengths luxury houses will go to secure proprietary high-caliber materials.
When a perfumer utilizes an extract of that purity, the resulting fragrance transcends a simple sweet smell.
It ceases to be a flat aroma and becomes an immersive textural experience. You can almost feel the viscosity of the honey in the air.
You see a similar dedication to hyper-realistic gourmand textures in Les Indomptables Vanille Havane, which the reviewer awarded a 9 out of 10.
Calling it an elite blend of vanilla, rum, and chocolate that battles with titans and comes out standing.
I noticed a recurring theme in these high-end gourmands. Alcohol. Rum, whiskey, cognac.
Booze and tobacco are obvious cultural pairings.
Yeah, they belong together in a lounge or a speakeasy, but why do they work so incredibly well inside a perfume bottle? What is the chemistry of mixing booze and leaf?
It comes down to volatility and molecular weight. As we establish, true tobacco absolute is a very heavy, dense, deeply opaque material.
If you wear it on its own, it sits very close to the skin and feels almost oppressive.
Exactly. When a perfumer introduces a highly volatile, boozy note, like a hyper-realistic rum or a sharp whiskey extract, the alcohol acts as an aromatic solvent and a lifting agent.
I'm trying to visualize this. It's like the alcohol evaporates much faster than the dense resins, and as it burns off your skin into the air, it literally acts like a hot air balloon.
Carrying the heavier tobacco scent molecules up to your nose.
That is an exceptionally accurate visualization.
The rapid evaporation of the boozy notes physically lifts the heavy tobacco molecules off the skin, giving the entire composition a frothy, intoxicating, airy texture that it would otherwise lack.
You see this lifting effect beautifully executed in a fragrance like Nishain Fan Your Flames, which the reviewer scored a 9 out of 10.
It blends a heavy tobacco with creamy coconut and sharp rum,
Creating an atmosphere that the reviewer vividly describes as an evil villain's lair, hidden in a fun beach resort.
that is such a specific, cinematic, and amazing vibe, a villain drinking a pina colada.
But I do have to push back a little on this entire gourmand trend.
Yeah.
Looking at it critically, it reminds me of the culinary world's absolute obsession with salted caramel a few years ago.
How so?
You are taking a dark, slightly dirty, complex edge, the salt, or in this case, the smoky tobacco, and you're really only using it as a prop to make the sugar pop.
It's just a contrast agent.
Exactly. At what point does a fragrance stop being a tobacco scent and just become a wearable bakery? Like the reviewer noted about the Guerlain fragrance, the honey is so strong it drowns out the tobacco.
Right.
If I buy a tobacco fragrance and I end up just smelling like Winnie the Pooh who wandered into a cigar shop, didn't the perfumer fundamentally fail their mission?
That is a very valid structural critique of the genre, and it ultimately comes down to understanding the psychological intent behind what the wearer is seeking.
Why do we, as modern adults, want to walk around smelling like a decadent dessert?
Sociologically and psychologically, the meteoric rise of gourmand fragrances is intrinsically linked to a societal desire for cocooning and self-comfort.
We live in an increasingly chaotic, highly digitized, stressful world.
Precisely. Smelling like warm vanilla, hyper-realistic honey, and rum provides a profound subconscious sense of safety, nostalgia, and indulgence.
In these gourmand fragrances, the concept of tobacco has been completely reframed.
It is no longer a dangerous, transgressive, boundary-pushing vice like it was for the rebellious flappers in 1920s Paris.
It has been tamed. It is a rich, comforting indulgence. It operates as the olfactory equivalent of a heavy, weighted blanket.
Okay, I can see the logic in that.
Yeah.
The world outside is stressful and unpredictable.
Yeah.
Let me just smell like a rum cake, wrap myself in my weighted blanket, and hide from the news cycle.
But as you rightly pointed out earlier, the market is vast, and not everyone wants to smell like a pastry or a cocktail.
Some people want their tobacco to smell like the actual, literal world.
Which brings us to an exploration of the outliers. These are the fragrances that take tobacco out of the velvet-lined lounge, out of the sugary bakery, and throw it into the wild.
Exploring the outliers is where we truly see the extreme, boundary-pushing edges of the ingredient's versatility.
If you deliberately move away from the heavy vanillas, the dense resins, and the syrupy honeys, there is an entirely different frontier of botanical tobacco to explore.
Let's examine two drastically different, highly specific outliers from our sources. The fresh, aromatic summer tea tobacco and the hyper-realistic, rugged, dirty campfire smoke.
Let's start with the summer scent, because that sounds like an oxymoron.
When I think of tobacco, my brain immediately defaults to fall and winter. Heavy wool coats, freezing weather, sitting by a fireplace.
How on earth do you engineer a tobacco fragrance that you can comfortably wear to the beach in July without suffocating everyone around you?
You look to a masterful composition like Creed Tabarome Millesime, which our intrepid Reddit reviewer awarded a very strong 9 out of 10.
They described it as an aromatic beauty, green, masculine, and explicitly stated for their readers, want a tobacco you can wear in summer. Move aside Naxos. This is how it's done.
I am genuinely curious about the chemistry here. How do you take a heavy brown leaf and make it smell fresh and aquatic?
The perfumer achieves this feat by completely changing the point of harvest in the plant's life cycle.
They highlight the unsmoked, raw, green, living aspects of the tobacco leaf, long before it is dried, cured, and darkened.
They capture the scent of the plant while it is still growing in the soil.
They then pair that vibrant green tobacco leaf with highly astringent, refreshing herbaceous notes like green tea and bright, sparkling citrus, specifically mandarin.
So the citrus is cutting through any residual heaviness.
Exactly. The sparkling mandarin and the bitter astringent tea act like a cool, rushing breeze running through a field of fresh, living tobacco plants.
The resulting scent profile is pristine, high society, and incredibly versatile. It completely reinvents the weight of the ingredient.
So that is the pristine, wealthy summer day on a yacht. But then we have the exact polar opposite end of the natural spectrum.
We are leaving the country club, leaving civilization behind, and going deep, deep into the woods.
Let's talk about the wildest fragrance in our sources. Naomi Goodsir Boideses.
We pulled an expert review of this specific perfume from a YouTube channel called Crazy Nose Fragrance Reviews, and the picture this reviewer paints is incredibly vivid and almost intimidating.
Boideses represents the apex of what we would call an artisanal, hyper-realistic environmental fragrance.
The YouTube reviewer explicitly states, without hyperbole, this is a real campfire smell.
To achieve this startling level of realism, the perfumer does not rely on the sweet halite coumarin we discussed at length earlier that would make it too soft.
Instead, they utilize intense, highly aggressive phenolic materials, most notably cadewood oil and birch tar.
Phenolic. I remember reading about phenols. That's the specific chemical class that gives you that smoky, almost medicinal, heavy, tar-like smell, right? Like peaty scotch or dark asphalt.
Spot on. Cade oil is derived from the destructive distillation of juniper wood, and it literally smells like a smoldering campfire.
Birch tar has a similarly intense, leathery, smoky profile.
When a perfumer combines these heavy, tarry phenols with a bone-dry, unsweetened tobacco note, the result is an admonishingly evocative, almost harsh atmospheric scent.
The YouTube reviewer had a deeply personal, visceral connection to it.
He described how the smell instantly transported him back to his younger days, roughing it, camping out under the stars in the vastness of the Australian outback.
He said it perfectly captures the specific smell of waking up in the freezing morning, smelling the cold ash remnants of a fire that is nearly burned out.
Mixed with a lingering, anise-like spiciness, the dregs of cheap whiskey and the smell of cigars clinging to a heavy lumberjack's jacket.
He literally says it makes you smell like a lumberjack emerging from the woods.
It is a breathtaking description of a memory. However, he ultimately gave it a 7 out of 10. Simply because it severely lacks versatility.
And I have to zero in on that critique, because it sounds like an amazing, profound experience for nostalgia.
It sounds incredible for sitting alone in your house on a rainy Sunday and vividly remembering a camping trip from your youth.
But as a functional fragrance, something you spray on your body to go out into human society. Think about the practicality.
If I walk into a 9:00 a.m. staff meeting in a sterile corporate office smelling like a lumberjack who just survived a raging forest fire, drank a bottle of scotch, and hasn't showered in 3 days, I am going to legitimately freak my coworkers out.
It raises a fundamental debate. Is a perfume like this meant to be appreciated as pure avant-garde art, or is it supposed to be a wearable daily accessory?
It is undeniably, uncompromisingly perfume as high art. Wearing a scent as challenging and aggressive as Boideses is not about mass appeal.
It is not designed to garner polite compliments in a corporate elevator.
It is an act of deep, highly personal indulgence. It is about utilizing the power of olfaction to physically, tangibly inhabit a specific memory.
And what is truly fascinating about this debate, wearability versus art, compliment-seeking versus personal nostalgia, is that the way we use scent to capture memory and the types of memories we wish to project to the world changes drastically as we age and mature.
If you are listening to this on your commute right now, think about the perfume or cologne you sprayed this morning.
Did you spray it to comfort yourself? Did you spray it to blend in at the office?
Or did you spray it hoping someone specific would notice you?
Because that exact psychological question provides the perfect organic transition to the final piece of our puzzle today.
We have this brilliant, illuminating research from the Fernweh Academic Journal, which studies how a person's age and stage of life directly, predictably impacts their fragrance preferences.
And their findings completely map onto everything we've talked about regarding tobacco today.
The Fernweh research is a fascinating sociological study. It traces a distinct, almost universal psychological evolution in olfactory preference.
The journey invariably begins in the teenage years, a tumultuous phase they categorize perfectly as sweet rebellion.
Yes, the era of the body sprays. The overwhelming cotton candy, the loud projection, the desperate need to be noticed.
The research points out that young people naturally gravitate toward these incredibly loud, intensely sweet scents as a way to awkwardly assert their independence.
It is the biological olfactory equivalent of a teenager blasting loud music in their bedroom with the door closed.
If we tie that psychological profile back to the specific tobaccos we discussed today, this is the 16-year-old kid saving up their allowance to buy that obnoxious 1 out of 10 Mancera Red Tobacco Monster.
Just so everyone in the high school hallway knows, without a doubt, that they have arrived.
The intent is pure disruption. Furthermore, the resilient skin chemistry of youth can often tolerate and project these intense, heavily synthetic, sweeter fragrances without them turning sour.
But the study shows that as individuals transition into early adulthood, their 20s and their early 30s, there is a marked shift.
The research notes a desperate search for finding balance. People are entering professional environments, navigating complex social dynamics.
And they suddenly require versatility over sheer volume.
That is exactly where a masterpiece of fresh engineering like our Creed Tabarot Millicine comes in.
The fresh, green, tea-infused, unsmoked tobacco.
It is sophisticated enough that you can wear it to a crucial job interview without offending the hiring manager, but it's still fresh and interesting enough for a weekend date.
In your 20s, you are actively figuring out who you are, and you realize you don't need to scream your identity with a chemical megaphone anymore.
You want to be invited into the room, not kicked out of it.
The evolution completes in the final phase the research identifies, the era of confident sophistication, which typically aligns with midlife.
In this stage, individuals often completely abandon fleeting trends. They are no longer seeking validation from their peers, nor are they trying to blend into a corporate background.
They settle into complex, challenging, woody, or deeply spicy profiles that become their enduring, recognizable signature scents.
They are wearing fragrances that reflect the depth of their accumulated life experiences.
This is where the true masterpieces live. This is the confident adult finally settling into the flawless, high-wire balance of tobacco vanille, knowing they are wearing an icon.
Or even more profoundly, this is the person who embraces the deeply evocative, nostalgic, antisocial campfire smoke of Bois de Cesse entirely for themselves.
They wear it regardless of what anyone else in the office thinks, because the memory it unlocks for them is worth more than a coworker's compliment.
So, after unpacking 1920s history, supercritical CO2 chemistry, internet beast mode culture, and the psychology of aging, what does this massive stack of information mean for you, the listener?
Check your own perfume shelf. It means your perfect signature tobacco scent is out there waiting to be discovered.
Whether you want to channel the transgressive, rebellious energy of a 1920s flapper with a leathery illusion,
Project the pristine green freshness of an English lord on a summer day.
or wrap yourself in a cozy, rum-soaked weighted blanket of a gourmand on a rainy evening.
The options are limitless.
Which leaves us with an important, highly introspective final thought for our listeners to consider.
The Fernweh Journal concludes their study with a profoundly philosophical perspective on the enduring power of this specific botanical ingredient.
They state, quite simply, tobacco doesn't burn in perfumery, it reminds.
Tobacco doesn't burn in perfumery, it reminds. That is a stunning way to frame it.
So we leave you with this final question. What forgotten memory, what deeply hidden facet of your own complex identity might you finally unlock by embracing the ghost of tobacco?
Remember how we started this deep dive talking about tobacco being the ultimate chameleon character actor?
Well, the stage is set, and the script is entirely yours to write. You just have to choose the right scent for the scene.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.